We've all been there, right? You type a question into ChatGPT, and a moment later, you get an answer. But what happens to that question after you hit enter? Well, in this explainer, we're digging right into OpenAI's official policies to figure out exactly what the rules are for your data and what they can and can't do with it.
It's a huge question, and honestly, it's something we should all be asking. These tools are incredibly powerful, but we have to remember it's kind of like a two-way street when it comes to our data. So let's get some real answers pulling directly from their own documentation. So to really get a grip on the rules, we first have to ask, what data are we even talking about here? It really breaks down into two main categories: the information you actively give them and the data they collect automatically, kind of in the background while you're using the service. Okay, first up, there's the stuff you provide directly. This is the obvious things, like your account info when you sign up, name, email, all that. And of course, all your user content. And that means every single prompt you write and every file you upload. Heck, even just emailing their support team creates a data point. It all paints a very clear picture of how you're interacting with them.
And then there's all the data that gets collected automatically, behind the scenes. This is basically the technical footprint you leave behind every time you visit. Your IP address, what kind of device you're on, and, cookies. And trust me, those little things do a lot more than just remember your login.
Look, I know the word cookies can make your eyes glaze over, but it's actually pretty simple when you break it down. You've got your necessary cookies, those just make the site work. Then you've got analytics cookies, often from Google, which help OpenAI see how people are using their services. And finally, marketing cookies, which help them figure out if an ad they ran on, say, Reddit or LinkedIn actually worked. All right, all of this technical stuff leads us to the big one, the question on everyone's mind. What about your actual prompts, your ideas, your conversations? Who owns the stuff you create with the AI, and how is it being used? For any creator, writer, or professional out there, this is absolutely the most critical part of the whole deal. So let's start with the clearest statement possible, pulled straight from their terms of use. You own the output. It's right there in black and white. That means the text, the code, the images the AI generates for you, they're yours. That's a huge clarification. But of course, it immediately brings up another question. Okay, so you own the output. That's great. But what about the input? Can OpenAI still learn from your conversation? Does your brilliant prompt become training data for the next, even smarter version of their AI? This is a core question for how this technology develops. So here's the deal. By default, the answer is yes. OpenAI's policy is that they use your content to make their services better, and that includes training their models. But, and this is a really big but, you have a choice. You can actually go into your settings and opt out. You can tell them, hey, don't use my stuff for training. This is probably the single most important control every user should know about. Now, there's a little asterisk here that we need to talk about. Even though you own your output, it might not be one of a kind. See, the AI could give another user a very similar or even identical response if they ask a similar question. It's working on patterns and probability, not magic. So your unique creation might not be so unique after all. All right, so we know what they collect and who owns what. That's half the battle. Now, let's talk about the actual rules of the road. What are the big do's and don'ts when you're using these services? The number one do is this. You are the boss. You're the final checkpoint. OpenAI is super clear that the AI can get things wrong. It can be inaccurate. It's totally on you to fact-check it and decide if it's right for what you're doing, especially before you go and publish something or make a big decision based on it.
This one's huge, and it's all about transparency. You can't pass off AI-generated content as if it were written by a person. It's really about being honest and preventing misuse. If a bot made it, you need to be upfront about that.
This one's pretty standard for any online service, but it's super important. Basically, don't use these tools to do anything illegal. You can't use them to create content that infringes on a copyright, defames someone, or breaks any laws. You're responsible for how you use the AI. And finally, a big don't for the tech-savvy folks out there. You're not allowed to try and peek under the hood. The technology behind the models is OpenAI's secret sauce, their core intellectual property, so you can't try to decompile it or figure out how it works. Okay, so we've talked about the rules for us, the users. But what about OpenAI? What are they actually doing on their side of the fence to keep the platform and all our data safe? Let's pull back the curtain a bit and look at their security and transparency game.
Well, they're not just crossing their fingers and hoping for the best. They've got some serious measures in place. They go through major third-party audits like the SOC 2 certification to prove their systems are secure. They even hire outside experts, basically ethical hackers, to do penetration testing and find weaknesses. Plus, they have a bug bounty program where they pay researchers who find and report security flaws.
And here's something that's a really big deal for accountability. Just like other major tech companies, OpenAI now publishes these regular transparency reports. They show us exactly how many requests they're getting from governments who want access to user data. It's a small window, but a really important one. So let's put some real numbers to this. In the last half of 2023, they got 57 requests from governments for what's called non-content data. This is usually just the basics, like a user's name or IP address, not the actual content of your prompts. Okay, 57. Now, let's compare that to requests for the actual content, the words you typed in your prompts. For that same period, just 13. Seeing these numbers side by side gives you a much better feel for the scale and type of these government requests. So, after all that, what can you actually do? With all this information, it's time to talk about your rights as a user and how you can take the driver's seat. And this is the most important takeaway, for sure. You have fundamental rights over your data, thanks to laws like GDPR and the CCPA. You have the right to access it, delete it, correct it, and even transfer it somewhere else. And you can do most of this right through your account settings or by contacting their privacy team. Remember, this isn't just a nice-to-have company policy, it's your legally protected right. When you step back and look at it all, you realize something. Using AI is really a partnership. OpenAI builds the tools, absolutely. But we, as users, have both the power to control our data and the responsibility to use these amazing tools ethically and thoughtfully. The technology is moving at lightning speed, and these policies will keep evolving, leaving us all with a shared responsibility to stay informed and engaged.